Hello and welcome to my presentation today about the purpose of your data. My name is Clemens Kaar and I am responsible at Tractive for everything that comes along with data. So my official title is here, Head of Big Pet Data. That means that I'm responsible for the data team when it comes to the data engineering part on the one side, but on the other side also the data science and the analytical part here. Yes, what is in general Tractive? I want to start with that before I'm coming back to the official title of this presentation. So Tractive, probably you've heard about us already. We are the market leader in GPS tracking for cats and dogs. So that's explicitly for cats and dogs and not for any other purposes here. So it's really our product is dedicated to cats and dogs. We are headquartered in Linz, actually close to Linz, Pasching, and we currently have around 140 employees, most of them located in Linz. Since a few weeks, we are also having an office in the US, so also a few employees are sitting there. I'm doing this talk in English because English is the company language, since we have people from all over the world, I would say, different cultures. We have more than 33 nations. I think that's the right number here. For sure, more than 30 nations in the company. Yes, and we currently have around 500,000 cats and dogs out there who are wearing our attractive GPS device in more than 150 countries over the world. Yes, here you see how our product looks like. So it's a GPS tracker. Actually, it's not just a GPS tracker, it's also an activity tracker. So similar to what people have for or use for themselves, like a Garmin device or a Fitbit device. We are producing that for cats and dogs. So it looks like this, and this one can be attached to a cat's or a dog's collar. And then the people have the chance to look at the mobile phone, what is the path a cat or a dog is doing, so where is the cat actually located right now, and also to get some more health-related stuff like how active the dog is, how the sleeping behavior is, and things like that. Good. I'm not here today to present you the company Tractive. I'm here for the purpose to talk about the purpose of the data, and I want to share with you my point of views, why it's so important to keep in mind what's the purpose of data. I can tell you already, I'm separating here the data into the two parts, the functional purpose and the analytical purpose. Actually, I'm more coming from the analytical side, but I will cover both areas a bit here today. And yeah, to make that a bit more visible to you, I will give you an explanation what I mean by those two categories, functional data and the functional purpose and the analytical purpose. So let's think about GPS data. Yes, we have this GPS device and we are collecting a lot of GPS data. What is the functional purpose of this GPS data? The functional purpose is we wanna tell the customers where the cat and the dog is. That's it. So that's really the functional purpose. From an analytical point of view, there are different stakeholders interested in some different data. For example, someone from product team might want to know when the hunting season starts in certain regions over the world, because that's actually valuable information, either for syncing with a partner, for example, or even for using it for improving the quality of the product in the end. So it's those 2 points of views, the functional part, giving the GPS data to the customer, and the analytical part, which is then I'm interested in anything else apart from that. Yeah, and that is the case not just for GPS data, that is the case also for activity data. So purpose of activity data is, in the end, we want to tell the customer how active your dog is, or how is the sleeping behavior of your dog. For internal or other purposes, for more the analytical purposes, it's we are interested, or we want to compare the sleeping behavior of beagles with the sleeping behavior of a Siberian Husky, for example. There we see again, so we do have two different point of views. The one is the customer facing one, and the other one is the analytical point of view. Yeah, we are collecting way more data than this: user data, pet data, connectivity data, app data, web data, marketing data. Also here we have the different purposes. The functional purpose of marketing data, it's the one that we wanna run efficient marketing campaigns, or we wanna, for example, run Google campaigns. That's the functional point of view. The analytical point of view, we really want to compare then, for example, the different campaigns, how they were behaving, and how, or what strategy we can implement to get more towards an efficient marketing strategy. Yeah, many more data: logistics data, sales data, finance data, webshop data, and so on. So that results in the end, from a more technical point of view, that we have data split around into multiple data sources. On the left side, it's the internal data sources, like we have a database for the webshop data, we have a database for user data, a database for GPS data, and so on. On the other side, we do have also a data that's stored or that's provided by external tools, like I take out here, for example, MailChimp. That's a tool we are using for setting up newsletter campaigns. Now, whenever a system is implemented, either we develop it ourselves or we choose a system from an external company, the first thoughts are mainly going towards the functional part, because that's what the product is here for. For example, if we now think about implementing a GPS tracker, of course, we do that because customers want to track their dog, the cat, or any other pet. So the functional purpose is always the one which stands in front. Over the time then, and I saw that when we started at the beginning, it's just, we have to deliver that for the customer. But over the time, over the development process, you get always, or people coming to you and say, I have the need of analyzing this data for that purpose. So over the time, you see then that there are other needs rather than the pure functional ones. Now the question is, what can we do to still separate those two parts, the functional and the analytical purpose of the data, and why it is important to separate it? I want to answer that already up front, why it is important, because otherwise you lose the focus. I know it from our past that we started implementing analytics in our pure functional environment. And then the developers, for example, want to set or add an additional table or whatever in the database that we can fulfill this analytical purpose. But that's not the way to go, because you lose really the focus, and you mixture then the analytical side with the purpose of the functionality side. And what most companies do then, and we are doing a similar thing, they implement basically something, a central tool or whatever, that this tool helps to analyze the data from any data sources, and developers try here to get away from the pure functional side to go more towards the analytical side. This can be done in various ways, either to choose a tool which is a pure SQL tool, or a more sophisticated tool like Tableau, for example, where you can even set up your own data warehouse, or you build your own data warehouse that you extract the data from the different data sources and you pull it in into the data warehouse and then visualize it again and access it via a separate tool. Or you even use a combination of your own data warehouse and the data warehouse that's provided by a tool manufacturer. Or you do it that way, that you say, I extract some data, put it in a data lake, and then from there process the data, put it again in a data warehouse, visualize the data, and so on. So there are different varieties how that's possible. To set up this separation from the functional part and the analytical part here. Most of the companies I'm talking to, when they do that, when they basically set up this data flow, companies are talking here about ETL and setting up data warehouse, most companies think that they have done their job already. So they think, now I'm splitting the functional side of the data and separate it from the analytical side. We thought that as well. And the reasons why we did that, I think that similar reasons like other companies have, why they separate those two words. It's, for example, I want to join information. I want to unify data formats. I want to make it as performant as possible for on the one side the functional part, for example, people can access the GPS data really fast. And from an analytical side, it's more like we are not interested in a single tracker. We want to analyze it in bulk. Yes, or also usability is like the usability of the data from a customer side is a completely different one than from the analytical side. So as already mentioned, we have set up also like here a data pipeline where we try to put data from the individual data sources into a data warehouse in the end, and we visualize the data then. So that's done in our case with Airflow, that's used to trigger the jobs that we can extract the data. We are doing the extraction we are doing with Apache Spark, load the data then into Amazon S3 bucket and push it later into the Amazon Redshift database. And in the end, we visualize it using any kind of data visualization tools. Yeah, I've mentioned before, when people build like such a structure that we have the data for the functional purpose and the data for the analytical purpose separated, companies always think they are done or they are doing already the best job and it's super fine. But my experience shows me something else, that it's not just about separating those two words. And I want to explain it by using an example here. Let's say we decide, additionally to our Tractive GPS tracking in general, we want to implement also a BMI calculator that somebody sees if the dog is too fat or has too much weight. What we need purely from a functional side is we need to ask the customer about the weight of the dog. Yes, we implement it that way, that they can enter the weight of the dog and then they see the results directly in the app that my dog has a BMI similar to humans, a BMI of 30 or something, and that's in a good range or in a not so good range. When this is implemented, the product team, the developers, they all think just about the functional side, because customers want to have this information in the end. Later, it can be the case that probably any other team, like a research team or something, they are interested in, I want to see now how the weight of the weight develops over the time, and we see that this is not possible because the customer can just enter the weight and we don't have this history of the past. So if we want to fulfill that, the first step would be, yes, I'm talking now to the developers because they should just implement this history, that we see this history, and every time someone changed the weight of the pet, it should be written again in the database and we have the full history of every pet. That's fine, that's doable, and then we can analyze the data using any data visualization tool in the end, piping the data through the whole data pipeline. The point is here, when it's already implemented at the beginning of this whole data pipeline, in that case, it's not implemented for a functional purpose because customers, we won't visualize it to the customer. It's just that our research team is interested in that. So it's pure analytical purpose, why we need this additional history here. And the way how it's often done, that product team, for example, goes to the developers and they implement this history, and then it's done. The data is piped through the data pipeline and everything is fine. But at that point of time, we are mixing already the functional side with the analytical side. To avoid this, it would be probably better that just on the data pipeline side, we are building up a structure that allows you to follow this weight history. Yes, that would be the best scenario, but we know it's quite often the time that people are not going to the data people here and say, I want to have this. They are first of all talking to the developers because we need to collect this data. And that's not that's the biggest problem I'm seeing here. Everyone actually in the company, product team, developers, and so on, have to have this mindset that we have those two fields, the functional purpose of the data and also the analytical purpose of the data. And how to get there. So functional purpose and analytical purpose. How to get there? Yes, the split of the data, let's say I have this functional environment and also this analytical environment, it's already a first step, but it's more than that. What I can recommend is build awareness. That's really important, that everyone in the end knows that those two sides exist. And if everyone knows about that, decisions can be done really easy. Who is then responsible for setting up infrastructure that's relevant for the analytical purpose? And if everyone knows that, you don't have this problem anymore that those two fields are interlinked to each other. They are always seen as two separate sides. So please be sure that you are building in your company this awareness that those two sides exist. Second thing, what we are seeing at Tractive here, it helps if you have an organizational structure that separates also those two fields. So we do have data engineers, data people, developers on the functional side, and we do have also data experts, developers who are sitting on the analytical side. So that makes it also easier to split those two worlds. And the third thing I can really recommend here, it's about the process. Whenever a new piece of software is developed or a new feature is developed or something like this, make sure that you have a process that follows also this separation of the functional part and the analytical part. In our case, we are doing it in that way that, for example, in kickoffs, there are always the people who are actually implementing this new feature, so from a functional side, and there are also people who are responsible later for implementing the analytical part of the new feature. Yeah, even we separate when it comes to tickets, for example, we even separate those two sides, that we have a completely separate ticket for the analytical side and a completely separate one for the functional side. Yes, that's basically it already from today's session. I don't want to go more into detail about how we have set up then the individual words here. But if you're interested in that, feel free to contact me, to come back to me. I can just repeat, please really make sure that you have this mindset. There exists this functional purpose and this analytical purpose. If everyone has that in the mind, nothing can go wrong, and you are really on the good side that you separate those two worlds, however the infrastructure then looks like. Yes, that's it from my side this time. Yeah, as I've mentioned, if you want to know further details, if you want to know, or if you're just interested in syncing regarding this topic or any other data-related topic, feel free to contact me either by sending an email directly, or I'm also on LinkedIn. Do not hesitate to contact me. Thanks a lot.